The colony world of Veredis Prime hung in the view screen like a bruised pearl. Once it had been the jewel of the outer veil, a terraformed paradise of silver oceans and floating cities. Now it was a dying star's hostage. 41 hours earlier, the red supergiant Betelgeuse had, without ceremony or warning, begun its final collapse. The astronomers of the Concordance had predicted another 10,000 years of stable life. They were wrong by roughly 10 millennia. Core fusion chain shattered. The star's outer envelope detonated outward in a sphere of plasma, moving at 6% of light speed. When that shell reached Veredis Prime, the oceans would boil away in minutes, the crust would crack like glass, and 1,300,000 human souls would cease to exist in a heartbeat of white fire. The Concordance fleet was 9 days away at maximum FTL. The evacuation arcs that could have lifted 100,000 were still in dry dock at Procyon. Every admiral, every minister, every emergency committee had done the math and quietly turned away. Veredis was already ash in their minds. All except one ship. CCS Theseus, registry number CX-311, was an aging frigate from the old Terran Coalition War. She was built before the Concordance standardized full drives, before the treaties that forbade weapons of mass exclusion, before humanity agreed to play nice with physics. She was ugly, scarred, and, by every modern regulation, illegal in 17 volumes of space law. Her captain was illegal in 18. Captain Elias Rook stood on the bridge of the Theseus and watched the tactical hologram paint the advancing wave front in pulsing crimson. 41 hours. Maybe 39 once relativistic effects were taken into account. Status on the Riemann manifold, he asked, voice calm, almost bored. Lieutenant Commander Amrita Singh, his chief engineer and probably the only person in the galaxy who still called him Sir without irony, didn't look up from her console. The coils are singing, Elias. They're also bleeding neutrons like a stuck pig. If we spin the manifold past 98%, the hull plating turns into soup. And at 99? We arrive in time. Then the ship turns into soup. Rook allowed himself half a smile. Then we'll aim for 98.5 and negotiate from there. The crew, 27 misfits, exiles, and court-martial survivors, didn't laugh. They had followed Rook across 3 mutinies, 1 war crime tribunal, acquitted on technicality, and the infamous breach of Kepler, 438 where he had once folded space, so hard the enemy fleet arrived at its own funeral a week early. They trusted the man the way ancient sailors trusted typhoons, with fatalistic awe. Plot the fold, Rook ordered. Single jump. Origin, current position. Destination, Veredis high orbit, -4 hours from wave front impact. I want us coming in hot, shields angled to surf the bow shock. Singh finally looked up. Her dark eyes were wide. Elias, that's not a fold. That's a weapon. The Riemann shear alone will. Rip a hole straight through the envelope and spit us out where we need to be, he finished.
Yes.
I'm aware. He turned to the hologram and zoomed in on Veredis Prime. A million lights still burned in the floating cities. Children were asleep. Parents were arguing about whether the evacuation lottery was rigged. Someone, somewhere, was falling in love for the first time. Rook's voice dropped until only the bridge microphones caught it. They think no one is coming. He tapped the comm panel. Fleet-wide channel. Old Terran override codes that still worked because no one had bothered to update them in 40 years. This is Captain Elias Rook, CCS Theseus. To all stations, this is not a drill. We are executing an emergency deep fold into Veredis space. Any ship with functional gravitic tugs, you have 38 hours to get your asses to the rendezvous point above the North Pole. We will tow every arc, shuttle, and floating bathtub that can hold pressure. If you are Concordance and you try to stop us, I will fold your ship into the sun. Rook out. He killed the channel. Singh stared at him. You just declared war on the Concordance. No, Rook said, rolling his shoulders like a boxer before the bell. I just reminded them whose war it was in the first place. The Theseus began to sing. It started as a low thrum in the deck plates, then rose into a scream only dogs and physicists could hear. The Riemann manifold, 4 rings of exotic matter spinning at relativistic speed around the ship's spine, flared white on every sensor. Space curdled. The stars stretched into molten ribbons. Inside the ship, time dilated. Seconds became hours. The crew strapped into crash couches while the hull groaned like a living thing. Rook stood at the center of the bridge, feet planted wide, one hand on the back of Singh's chair, the other wrapped around a coffee mug that had survived 3 wars and one very angry ex-wife. Manifold at 95, Singh reported through clenched teeth. Blood ran from her left nostril. The G-load was crushing them sideways through dimensions that hated being folded. 96, 97, sweet mother of entropy. 98.3. Hold it, Rook said quietly. The universe tore open. There was no transition, no tunnel of light, no comforting sci-fi cliché. One instant the Theseus hung in empty space 12 light-years away. The next it was screaming into Veredis orbit at 0.14 C, trailing a wake of Hawking radiation and broken mathematics. Alarms howled. The view screen went white, then resolved into a hellscape. The supernova wavefront was already visible, a wall of violet fire taller than worlds, racing inward. For hours. They had 4 hours. Rook slapped the ship wide. All hands, this is the captain. Welcome to Veredis. Gravity tugs, deploy now. I want every line on every civilian craft in the next 20 minutes. If it floats, we grab it. If it doesn't float, we make it float. Move. The Theseus was never meant to tow anything larger than a destroyer. Her gravitic spines were museum pieces. But museum pieces have a way of working when no one has bothered to tell them they're obsolete. Over the next 3 hours and 52 minutes, the impossible happened. Frigates, freighters, mining barges, even a half-finished luxury liner still smelling of fresh carpet. Every ship with a working reactor answered Rook's call. They came from shadow ports, from pirate havens, from places the Concordance pretended didn't exist. 211 vessels formed a ragged daisy chain behind the Theseus, each clamped to the next by gravitic tugs that were never designed to hold 1,000,000 lives. On the bridge of the Theseus, the air stank of ozone and terror. Singh's board was a Christmas tree of red. Hull temperature 4,000 Kelvin and climbing. Riemann coils are slagged. We have 1 fold left in us, maybe less. Rook nodded once. Then we use it. He opened the channel again, this time to the planet below. Every screen, every speaker, every child's toy with a receiver carried his voice. People of Veredis Prime. This is Captain Elias Rook. In approximately 7 minutes, the wave front will reach your atmosphere. You will not feel it. You will not suffer. But you will cease. Unless you listen very carefully right now. We have 211 ships in orbit. That is not enough to save everyone. It is enough to save some. If you are in a shuttle, an ark, a lifeboat, any craft with a transponder, broadcast on 142.8 MHz right now. We will find you. We will drag you out of the fire. To those we cannot reach, I am sorry. Know that you will not be forgotten. Static. Then a single voice, young, female, shaking. This is Sky Tower 7 traffic control. We have 90,000 in the upper docks. Please hurry. Rook closed his eyes for 1 second. 90,000. They could maybe take 20. Sky Tower 7, he said. Stand by for hard dock. The Theseus dove. No ship her size had any business entering atmosphere trailing 200 others. The sky ignited around her. Plasma sheets peeled paint in sheets. Somewhere aft, a tug line snapped, and a mining scow full of 5,000 souls tumbled away into the fire. There was no time for grief. Rook flew the frigate like a fighter pilot, threading between floating cities while gravitic claws reached down and snatched shuttles out of the air. Every second cost them hull integrity. Every life cost them minutes they didn't have. At T-6 minutes, the last line locked. 211 ships. 987,000 civilians. Not a million. Never a million. Rook's hands moved across the controls with the muscle memory of a man who had died 1,000 times in simulation and refused to do it for real.
Sing.
Give me the fold. She was crying, but her voice was steady. Manifold at 104%. That's not possible. Make it 110. You'll tear the ship in half. Then tear it in half somewhere useful. The Theseus held one last time. Space folded like burning paper. Reality inverted. For one infinite second, every atom aboard every ship experienced the entire future and past simultaneously. Then, they were elsewhere. A quiet patch of interstellar nothing, 43 light-years away. Behind them, visible even on normal optics, Betelgeuse detonated in a sphere of light that would blind telescopes for a decade. Veredis Prime was a cinder lost in the glare. Silence ruled the fleet. Then someone on an open channel began to clap. Others joined. Within seconds, a million voices were cheering, sobbing, screaming, praying in 100 languages. Rook didn't hear them. He was staring at the hull integrity readout, 0.7%. The Riemann rings were gone, vaporized. The Theseus would never fold again. She was mortal now. Singh unstrapped and walked over on shaking legs. She punched him in the shoulder, hard enough to bruise. 987,000, she said. You saved 987,000. Rook looked out at the ragtag fleet drifting in the dark. Lights winking on his life support came online as strangers hugged strangers, as children asked if the stars were supposed to look like that. He took a long drink from the coffee mug, cold now, bitter as defeat. 13,000 unaccounted for, he said quietly. I was late. Singh grabbed his chin and forced him to meet her eyes. You broke space itself with a 40-year-old war criminal and a crew of rejects. You were 4 hours early, Elias. 4 hours. He tried to pull away. She wouldn't let him. Listen to me, she whispered. A million waited for death. You gave them tomorrow. That's not late. That's a miracle with blood on its teeth. On the main screen, a little girl, no more than 6, appeared on an open channel from one of the rescued arcs. She was holding a stuffed giraffe and staring straight into the pickup. Are you the man who pulled us out of the sky? She asked. Rook opened his mouth, closed it. For the first time in 30 years, he had no idea what to say. The girl smiled, revealing a missing front tooth. Thank you for coming. Somewhere behind him, the crew was crying again. Rook felt something hot on his own cheek and realized he had forgotten how. He leaned toward the pickup. You're welcome, kid. The channel filled with voices, thousands of them, saying the same thing, over and over, until the words lost meaning and became pure sound. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Captain Elias Rook, terror of the outer veil, breaker of treaties and physics alike, stood on the bridge of a dying ship and let a million strangers see him weep. Later, much later, historians would argue about whether the Veredis rescue was the greatest act of heroism in human history or the most elegant act of piracy ever committed against reality itself. They would never agree. But on every colony that took in the refugees, on every ship that carried their children's children, one story was told the same way. A million civilians awaited death, until a human captain broke space to arrive in time. And somewhere, in a quiet corner of the galaxy, an ancient frigate named Theseus still drifts, dark and cold, her hull cracked open like a seed. Inside, etched into the captain's chair with a combat knife, are 4 words no one has ever explained. We were not late.